So how do you teach an AI to write a story that actually feels real? A story with some weight to it. Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating, kind of radical new idea that does just that. And it does it not by teaching AI about art, but by grounding it in the laws of physics. We're going to be looking at a method called the Bulut doctrine and its practical toolkit, Objective Projection.
We've all been there, right? You play around with a creative AI, you ask it for a story, and what you get back is, well, it's often flat. It's generic. It just feels empty. The words are technically correct, but that little spark of life, that human connection, it's just not there. So what's the deal? Why does that happen?
Okay, this slide right here perfectly illustrates the problem. A standard AI will just label an emotion. It tells you, straight up, the character felt sad. But this new approach, objective projection, forces the AI to show you. Instead of that abstract word, sad, it describes a physical, observable action, the character's shoulders slumped forward. And boom, we instantly get it. We know what that feels like. Our brains are just wired to see that and understand the emotion behind it, without ever needing to be told.
Now, this huge shift from telling to showing, it's the entire foundation for a new way of thinking called the Bulut doctrine. And it treats storytelling not just as this fuzzy art form, but as a real discipline, a practice they call narrative engineering.
So what in the world is narrative engineering? Well, it completely reframes the whole idea of writing. Instead of thinking of it as this purely subjective, artistic thing, you treat it like an engineering problem. The whole goal is to build a narrative using a specific set of physical parameters, stuff you can actually measure, and a clear set of constitutional rules. It's almost like a scientific protocol for how to write a good story.
And this is a really critical point that the system's founder makes. This is not a style guide. It's not about someone's opinion or subjective taste. It's an engineering specification, a protocol that you can test and reproduce. And what that means is the AI's writing can actually be audited and verified against objective standards.
All right, so how does this actually work in practice? The most clever and, honestly, the most innovative part of this whole system is a concept they call the output layer principle. It's all about building this invisible layer of physics that guides the story from behind the scenes.
Here it is, the golden rule. The physical data, all the numbers, the measurements, they are only used to govern the logic of the story. They should never, ever actually show up in the final text. You can think of them like the scaffolding for a building, absolutely essential to get the structure right, but you tear it all down before you call the building finished.
And this is just a perfect example of that principle in action. So in the background, in that hidden engineering layer, you might have this really dry piece of data, center of mass transferred at 0.2 hertz. A lazy AI would just copy and paste that right into the story. But the correct output, the one governed by the rule, uses that data to generate a simple human description. He shifted from his right foot to his left, then back. You see? The physics is what dictates the action, but you never see the numbers. It's completely invisible, but it's what makes that description feel so real.
So this is way more than just a cool theory. It's now a practical, hands-on toolkit that AI researchers can actually use, all thanks to the brand new open-source Objective Projection Dataset.
And this dataset gives you the whole shebang. It lays out the complete engineering specs. You get the core constitutional rules, you get the physical parameters they use, and you get these fantastic side-by-side comparisons of old AI output versus the new stuff. It even comes with a master prompt, so you can just dive in and start experimenting right away.
And this is exactly why it's such a game changer for the AI community. Researchers can now use this to actually benchmark their models, to see whose AI tells a more believable story. They can use it to fine-tune their systems to stop the AI from hallucinating, just making weird stuff up. And ultimately, it helps build a more formal, structured science of storytelling itself. And just so we're clear, this isn't some idea somebody just came up with. The Bulut doctrine is backed up by over 15 peer-reviewed DOI-registered scientific papers. They cover everything from the theory to the neurobiology behind it. This is a seriously well-researched methodology.
So let's step back for a second. What's the big picture here? What does all this mean for the future of how AIs write, communicate, and maybe even think?
The central claim is this. By grounding stories in objective physics instead of subjective, fuzzy, emotional words, AI can create narratives that are just way more reliable. They become more consistent, they become more stable across different cultures because, hey, slumped shoulders mean the same thing pretty much everywhere. And, this is so important, they become auditable. You can actually go back and check the AI's work.
It really all comes down to this powerful idea from the founder, Levent Bulut. He says, truth has an objective projection. We are merely the narrative engineers who trace it. That suggests that a great story isn't just invented out of thin air. It's a reflection of some underlying physical reality. And the job of the storyteller, whether they're human or AI, is to trace that projection as accurately as they can. It's a pretty mind-bending idea, and it might just be the blueprint for all the storytellers of the future.